Hello everyone, you're listening to the Earful Tower podcast. My name is Oliver G. Today in the studio is Lina, Norton G.
Hello!
She has requested a new nickname for
please.
the lovely Lina nickname's been along too long. So she's requested to be called the Mad Moose from Sweden. I think she should be the Stockholm Sting or the Happy Herring. But it's neither here nor there. She's my wife. She's the guest today. And the reason that I wanted to bring Lina in is because we're doing a bit of a different episode today. I'm going to explain sort of the 10 or maybe 12 things, the 12 decisions that I made that helped build the Earful Tower, that helped make it a success.
Is it a bear all episode?
It is a bear all episode, yeah.
Uh-huh.
But the idea is you're here is you can help keep it light. You can stop me from, getting, listen to me.
Rambling on.
For sure.
Okay, I'll do my best.
But also, it's weird for me to even say that this podcast is a success. I don't usually use that kind of language. I'm going to use some language in this episode that I haven't before, and it's very important that I say from the beginning, if you are new here, this is not the episode to begin with at all. This episode is going to be a sort of summary of how a podcast that started almost exactly 5 years ago got to where it is today, which I recently found out it's in the top 0.5% of all podcasts in the universe.
Wow.
In terms of listeners, I think.
Wow, that's worth mentioning.
Right?
For sure.
Yeah. I can't believe it. Anyway, also...
that's great, actually.
Also, it's got 2 million downloads this week as well. So to sort of mark these milestones, I was actually recommended by some of the members to do an episode that's a little bit introspective. So if you're new here and you're coming for a Paris episode, stop listening. The past 10 episodes have been some of the best I've ever done about Paris. So go and listen to one of them. I looked at the last 10, Catacombs, Le Maurice Hotel, talking to the chef, talking to a food critic, fashion. There's some good ones. Go and listen to them. This episode is for the people who are fans.
Are you going to go all nerdy on us?
A little bit.
Yeah, good.
Fans is another word I never ever have used.
Yeah.
I don't even like it. But fans
What do you prefer?
Listeners.
Okay.
I don't like the word fans. Well, we can get into that. But it's for people that love this show. It's also for people who maybe want to start a business, people who are curious about sort of entrepreneurial ideas, I think, and definitely for podcasters who want to grow a podcast.
Yeah.
So
and just people who want to maybe understand a little bit more about this world, because it's a very new sort of profession.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, it's not straightforward.
There's no book explaining how to do a podcast about Paris and make a career out of it, let alone a company out of it. But that's what we've done, and we're going to sort of go through a list of these 12 decisions I made that helped make the Earful Tower. That's what you're here for. It's me and the Stockholm Sting taking you through it. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's get into it. Okay, so I don't think we mess around at all. I've got this list. I think we just work through it. If you got questions, you can ask.
Yeah.
Some of these were inspired. I put a post on the members page saying, hey, it's been 5 years, 2 million downloads, anything you want to know. And my idea is I'm going to do this episode and something else as well.
Yeah.
So I'm going to touch on some of the things that people sent in. But as I said, a little bit of an explainer episode. And you can pull me up if I go too fast or if you think I miss anything.
Sure.
But I've sort of done them in a linear order from the start of the show. The big changes I made that took us to today.
Was it, before we start, was it hard to kind of dissect?
No, because I think about this stuff. I think about it all the time. This is where my thought, when it comes to work, I've put so much thought and effort and planning into so much of it and it's very easy for me to talk about. But it's
all in your head as well.
Yeah, but I've given talks and written the book and stuff like that. Okay. So this is pretty, I think, plus these decisions, some of them are really big. I remember them really clearly. So I'll give you some examples.
Okay, let's go.
Lina doesn't know the list either, so she's a listener too. The first big change is when I took over the editing of it. So to give everyone perspective, there's the radio channel in Paris and France called World Radio Paris. And the way it worked is I'd go into this studio, they'd release it as a show on their radio, and they'd produce it and they'd edit it. And what that meant is I had to rely on them right? And then one day the head of the radio, David, he might even be listening, he's like, what do you know about podcasts? I said, nothing at all. He's like, you should turn this into a podcast. And I was like, do I own it even? He's like, yeah, of course you own it. Go for it. Do it. I was like, okay. And then it was actually Amber Minogue who said to me, she goes, you should edit it. Then you can take it to whatever, you can do whatever you want with it.
So that meant that you owned it.
It's not even about the ownership. It's about creative control, having the final say on the product. And I remember I said to Amber, I was like, there's no way I can edit it. I've seen people do it. It looks really complicated. And she's like, if I can do it, you can do it. And this was like 4.5 years ago.
I like that attitude.
Yeah.
Good.
She's great. She's probably listening as well. Hi, Amber.
Hi.
Thanks for the help. So I went home that day. I learned how to edit. I learned how to edit to a degree, excuse the pun, that I taught it at university in Paris, how to edit audio.
Yeah, and I mean, you just, is this how you, I don't know if this is how you pronounce it properly, autodidact? Is that how you do it in English?
Self-taught?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, and wow.
You can learn anyone that wants to start a podcast, you can learn everything on the internet. It's all there for you. Anyway, so that was a big turning point because then I could, I didn't need to wait for anyone.
Yeah.
I didn't need to, I could have the episodes exactly as I want. Anyway, it's kind of a theme of taking it into your own hands, which is kind of like what we did with self-publishing books.
Yeah, you're just more in control.
Yeah, you can only blame yourself, really.
Yeah.
So that was a big step. And then a step soon after, that incidentally came from Vero, from...
Veronique?
Yeah, Veronique from Vero in France. Friend of the show as well. And her and I were having a talk also about 4.5 years ago, and she was explaining to me the importance of being sort of reliable. So the second decision I made was to put out an episode every Monday.
Without fail.
For 5 years.
Yeah.
At 8 o'clock Paris time every Monday. And it's crazy to me to think about. It's so crazy. But I know that there are people who go to bed on Sunday and look forward to the episode on Monday because they email and tell us.
I mean, it is hugely important, and I didn't realize the importance. I don't think a lot of people do. Maybe if you don't like actively think about it, but
sure.
Being reliable is huge, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think I've missed a Monday.
Yeah.
And I think people appreciate it. I know I've been fans of shows before, and you look forward to
for sure.
to the day that it comes out.
I've been refreshing pages. I've been known to refresh.
Stockholm sting strikes again. But that was just a small one, being reliable. And I'm going to get through these early ones quick. The next thing that I think made a big difference was ditching the studio. This was a huge one. Huge. Because
so go out into the wild.
Not just that. Ditching the studio when I was recording with World Radio Paris. Incidentally, I'm a volunteer board member of their company. Did you know that?
No. No, I didn't.
I say volunteer because I don't want you to think that I'm... But they asked me if I want to be on the board. I was like, yeah, why not?
What do you do?
I help make decisions.
What decisions?
I don't know.
What have you decided?
Like where their advertising money should go and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm very grateful to them because they gave me the chance to start out. But they also...
Cool. I'm surprised I didn't know this.
They let me use the studio. And the deal was, you can, as it grew, they're like, you can use our studio whenever you want. And we'll keep putting out your show on the channel. I was like, great. Eventually they gave me a key to it. And I was in there all the time. And I would edit in there and everything. And then I met supermodel Caroline de Maigret. This was a huge turning point in the Earful Tower history, is because I saw her walking down the street. You were there.
Yeah.
I ran across the road. I was like, are you Caroline de Maigret? And she's like, yes, I am, young boy. No, that's not what she said. She was a little bit like sort of taken aback, maybe, because I was speaking English and sort of accosting her in the street.
She was very cool about it.
She was super cool.
Yeah.
And then I go, do you ever do podcast interviews with Australian podcasters in Paris? And she sort of chuckled. And she's like, she started giving me her email address. I told this story before. And then she goes, look, it's never going to happen. Of course it was never going to happen. She was like what's it called for Chanel?
The ambassador?
The ambassador for Chanel. She'd just written a book. She's super busy. And then she goes, the only way this will happen is if we record it right now in that cafe right there that we're about to walk past. And I was like, I don't have any of my stuff. She goes, record on your phone. And when the episode came out, I was kind of terrified that people would think it was...
The quality is just shameful.
Like the coffee machine in the background, the waiter interrupting, all this. And all these people messaged, I felt like I was there in Paris with you.
It turned out to be a strength.
And basically, I basically never use the studio again. I prefer to record... If you're new to this show right now and you're listening, you won't even know this, I guess. I prefer to interview someone in a park with the sound of the birds in the background or the, shuffling gravel of people.
Definitely more of a natural sort of interviewer because you never prepare questions. Like you don't... It's just it's a natural conversation.
Yeah, that's
so
what it's
it
meant
kind
to
of
sort of
goes
feel
with
like.
your style,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I guess so.
So it's...
but I haven't been in that studio for like
bad thing
2 years at least now.
Yeah.
And I don't intend to
No, but it's
go back.
interesting because it was like a spur of the moment decision for you. And that turned out to change everything.
And here we are, not even in the studio today. And we'll get back to me and you soon. But the next thing I've put that was a big change for me, I don't even think people would have noticed this happen, is 1 week I decided that I didn't need to rely on a special guest every week. There was a week where there was no guest, it was me talking about, and I can't remember the episode. I tried to find it, but I don't know where it was. But at one point, I didn't interview anyone. It could have been the
Maybe
Philip
a list?
August Wall. It could have been a list, like
They just sort
20
of read out
words or something like that. But I remember recording it and publishing it, and at that point, I'd relied on people who had bigger followings than I did to be the special guest in the hopes that they would obviously share their great story, but obviously share the podcast and help it grow.
with their audience, yeah.
Exactly. And it went well, whatever that episode was. And I sort of got this green light to feel fine with having myself as the guest, or more importantly, having the subject as the guest. So the famous example of this is the Philip August Wall episodes that I've done, where it's me talking about tracking the wall, or anything else. Those kind of ones where, and then I went left, and then I went right. Those episodes where I'm sort of hosting and taking people for a walk or whatever. But also, and you've been in on this before, sometimes the guest is really a part of Paris. So it could be an episode about how to survive winter in Paris with someone as the guest. But it's not an episode about their life and what they've done.
No,
and you and I, we're doing it
about the
right now.
subject,
Right now, the subject is what we're talking about. It's not meet Lina and
No.
find how she gets inspiration
Boring.
for her lovely art and
Well,
children's
thank you
books.
very much for the secret shout out.
Parisian postcards.
That's me.
I get €1 every time
I'm
I
not going to say
mention.
no to free advertising.
Next one. But that was big anyway. Just not realizing I didn't need to have a
Feel
guest.
comfortable just to be by yourself.
In fact, I think it's a good time to do the next one, even though it's out of the order that I've written it. Is a huge decision was bringing you onto the show a lot more for several reasons. Firstly, because I think both of us have hesitation about couples doing
Huge hesitations like that. Yeah.
like sort of creative projects together.
I cringe at the thought of like coming on too often on the podcast and being like,
You don't just cringe. You've
No, but
made
like,
it very clear.
oh no, but it's just I can see how he looks like. Oh, he gets his wife on.
Yeah.
It's just
But
ugly.
both of us, were, especially in the
He
beginning,
gets
were-
his wife on. It's like maybe like she pesters him to be on.
Oh, I don't think
just
anyone
awful.
thinks that. No.
Or B, like just lame. So I well.
It's weird because I think
know
because
it's just weird. I have these hesitations, but I love it.
but I love having you on. Firstly, because we have fun talking.
I know.
Secondly, if I don't have a guest ready,
I'm
or a
conveniently here
subject,
in the living room.
You're always there. But no, I totally share that with you because I know some people on YouTube or whatever, and they're like, "Hey, today my wife's here," and you're like,
Be
"What?
like,
Who are
"What?
you? Why are you
Definitely
doing that?"
not.
But I think it was pretty organic, and we worked together, and weirdly, surprised you. It didn't really surprise me at all. But you've got fans from this podcast.
The humankind?
Yeah. when you let the spinning on the ceiling time. Fans. A lot of people who send in emails and reviews mention you, and I always read them to Lina when they mention Lina. Some of them are so lovely, and the word fans is another thing that I especially hate.
Yeah,
I find it's kind of self-indulgent to ever say that you have fans.
It's a pretty awful
Yeah,
word.
I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe it's more like an imposter syndrome thing. Perhaps. You know, like as in, I don't deserve fans.
Perhaps.
But I don't use that. I don't think I'd ever use that word. But I know a lot of you guys would call yourself fans, and that's really touching. And I find it, a lot of emails start with, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah. No, it's lovely, isn't it?
It's weird for us, all this, because like right now we're sitting in our living room and Lina and I are sitting face to face and talking, and it's not like a stand-up comedian talks to 2,000 people in the audience.
No, we literally talk to each other.
Yeah. But we know a lot of people listen.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's why we're not. I think we, keep it.
What was the title of this point again?
Bringing on Lina.
Oh, well, here I am.
But it was a big change because someone pointed out there's someone who, I think it's that listener from, oh gosh, I forgot where it was. The one that we were joking about where it was Central France. And we're like, oh, she's sponsored by...
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Lovely listener?
Yeah.
Anyway, she was the one working backwards through the show. And she's just got to the early episodes and she messaged me again to say she's found the first time you were on the show. And in the first episodes, there's times where I go, a girl called Lina from Sweden has written in... And I think the first time you're on the show, I just called you a friend of the show or something.
Yeah, right.
It was that Frongley wordplay challenge, like episode 7 or something.
Amazing. Wow.
Anyway, so it was a good thing to bring you on. I'm glad that we did.
Well, I'm very glad to be here.
I think it really opened the door for us making the children's books together as well.
Yeah.
Because people knew who you were.
Well, hi everyone.
Okay, jumping back a few now. A decision I made day one, really, but it was a big decision, especially on social media, was to make original stuff. Always do my own stuff. And this is not my diss on other Paris accounts, but there are a lot of other Paris accounts where they just all share photographers' pictures.
They go for pretty.
Everyone shares these beautiful, especially from past guests on the show, Raphael Metivet, or Metivé, the guy who goes up on the rooftops.
God, he's good, isn't he?
He's so good.
He's so good.
But if you ever go on Facebook, every Paris account, not everyone, but a lot of them share...
His pictures are everywhere.
Exactly.
Which is amazing.
And that's how he's grown huge, right? But I personally, almost as a rule, don't share other stuff on Facebook or Instagram because I think there are accounts that do a great job of curating good stuff that's out there. And I didn't want to be a curating account from the beginning.
You're a creator.
I always wanted to create stuff. I wanted people to share the stuff that I'd done rather than me, other people can curate.
Instead of just like, this is a beautiful wall.
Yeah.
Like, that's in Facebook wall, Instagram wall, whatever.
Not like a Philip August wall or something. Okay, cool. Got excited.
I know how much you love it. But no, not this time.
We can do in-jokes in this episode because I told new listeners to not listen.
Yeah. To come back later.
So we can say PA wall. Anyway, what are you going to say? Beautiful wall or Facebook?
Yeah, so instead of just like focusing on it has to be picture perfect, like literally picture perfect, you go for
ugly pictures sometimes.
Ugly pictures with a great story.
Yeah.
Or sometimes they're great pictures, to be fair.
If you scroll through my Instagram...
But it's always original.
Exactly.
And usually a story.
And that leads really nicely onto the next thing. When I was teaching podcasting at the American University of Paris, AUP? Yep. Yeah. They're like some student asked what makes a good podcast, and I made this up on the spot, but I stick by it. I've talked to people about it since, and I use it a lot, maybe without knowing in the beginning. But I think this will also help any podcasters listening. I have this triangle, kind of almost a rule now, that to make a really good podcast episode, Facebook post, anything, you got to try and touch every point of the triangle, right? And I'll explain what the points are in a second, but the idea is you can make a very successful anything just with one point of this triangle or with 2 points, But if you can touch all three, then you're going to succeed more, I think, more likely to succeed. And if I remember them, the points are entertaining. Mm-hmm. So you can have an entertaining podcast, you can have a comedy podcast.
Right.
That could be hugely popular. But then interesting is another one. A comedy podcast might not be interesting
like a
at all.
Documentary.
Exactly.
Perhaps.
And then a documentary that's interesting might not be entertaining, perhaps. Yeah. And then the last one is informative. If you can do, so let's say, stick with podcasts, a podcast about how to play chess. And it's just a guy reading from those books. It's like
manual.
Yeah, like a manual, right? It could be really informative, but it's not going to be entertaining or interesting. With the podcast episodes, I always think of ways to make, so if we talk about that wall, gosh, this is definitely the last mention of the wall. Me tracing this medieval wall around Paris.
You guys should see Oliver's face. It's like, it shines.
But that is potentially just an interesting episode. But if I add some facts, whatever, it's informative. And if I'm getting out of breath, jumping over a fence to touch the wall somewhere, thinking the police are going to get me, suddenly it's entertaining as well.
Yeah.
You know? Same with this one. This could be a really dry list, but, you know,
I think it's great. I mean, it's kind of what it applies to children as well. Like how you learn by playing.
Sure.
So it's entertaining, but it's informative. You know, it's kind of the fundamentals of taking in information the best way.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
I call it the triangle
of
a good podcast.
Very good.
Yeah. The next one is so we're talking about 10. If anyone's still listening, 10, it could be 12, depending on if we keep going, decisions that shaped the Earful Tower. And this is a very big one here. The biggest of all is making the membership program Patreon. And make Patreon or Patreon. It existed already. But essentially having an option for people to sign up as a member for a monthly fee or an annual fee absolutely changed everything.
Yeah.
It changed everything. And I've talked about this a lot before. I think the regulars will know, Patreon members definitely know. But the idea is when I started doing it, I quit I had a proper job in the city of Paris as a journalist. I started doing freelance on the side trying to make the podcast happen. And then one day, literally one day, I said, I'm not doing another freelance story for any newspaper. I'm focusing on Patreon. And my goal was that the monthly pledges added up to minimum wage. And I remember I changed it so much. At the time, there was a $1 level. And people were signing up for $1 a month. And I was like, whoa, this is amazing. And then I realized, oh my God, I'm going to need 1,400 members to sign up at $1 a month just to get minimum wage. So I toggled a lot.
Huge,
I toggled it so much since then. And I don't know how you measure the success of a podcast. I don't know if it's 5 years. Anyone with perseverance can get to 5 years. I don't know if it's 2 million downloads, because if George Clooney put out a podcast tomorrow, it'd probably get 2 million downloads on the first day. Or I don't know if it's income. I suspect it's income, because the amount of people that I meet when I say I have a podcast that ask straight away, you make any money from it? And I'm like, yeah.
It is fascinating. It's
always.
It's like the go-to question.
Or worse, people often say like,
do you make any money?
Can you pay your bills with that? Can you?
Well, I mean, fair enough. Everyone's curious. It's a new thing.
Everybody always asks it, but sometimes kind of they get pretty nosy about it. They're like, and I go, yeah, I make a living from it. And they go, how? I'm like, oh, people members now. How many members have you got? And then they're like, how much do they pay each? And I'm like, what's your salary exactly? But doing that, we got to the minimum wage, and then it has continued to grow so much that Lina and I are like officially hired by this company now with a salary, and we've had the fortune of being able to bring on Eddie, my brother, who edits the episodes, photographers, YouTube editors, and so on, and it keeps growing. I want to hire more people, actually.
Whole world now.
My goal is to hire someone for a sort of all-rounder position soon, if it can grow just a little bit more. But the point of it is that allowed me the freedom to have a job, to never have to do these freelance stories or freelance.
Not to be serious about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad, and a huge thank you to everybody who jumped in, because if I was still doing this podcast 5 years and I wasn't making a silver nickel out of it, it would be embarrassing, and every time I meet these people at weddings and stuff, to go, oh no, I haven't made any money from it yet, but I'll get there.
Yeah.
So thanks to all you guys who have been members or who are members, and thanks to all you guys who are considering it now, having heard me speak about it. Patreon.com/the Earful Tower. That is how these cogs keep on turning. Now, also, I
Very Tina Turner.
I put a little dash there next to making Patreon. Another big decision, same sort of thing here, is ditching sponsors. I've had overwhelmingly good relations with sponsors that I've dabbled with in the past.
Yeah.
Typically, it's been really good. But a big sort of shock to my system was when that pandemic hit. It went without saying that
It's like closing a tap.
Exactly. And the sponsor at the time, we didn't even talk about it. It was just, it went unsaid that they were dropping off. And that was the point where I was like, oh golly, I can't actually rely on anyone. I said, oh golly.
Yes.
I was like...
I noticed. Thank you.
It was like 1930. It was like a 1930s musical
golly.
or something.
Well, I am thinking of Hugh Grant in Notting Hill.
Oh,
you know, when he's jumping over
golly.
that fence into the secret garden. He's like, whoopsie daisy.
Yeah, that's what I was like. I was like, oh golly, I can't rely on anyone anymore. But I can rely on myself. I know I'm going to be reliable. And thank goodness I can rely on members who will be there. And now I never have sponsors. No sponsors.
Yeah, so instead of having sponsors, you are sponsoring your own show.
And I have no intention of getting sponsors.
Is that fair to say?
Well, the patrons are sponsoring. Yeah. And what's
that
cool
makes
is I
sense,
don't
of
have to
course.
do these 18-minute ads at the start of the show. I just mention Patreon every now and again. And that's the last time I'm going to say it. Patreon.com. The next big decision that changed everything, really, was writing books. Huge. And I'll tell you why, because when I wrote the first book, Paris on Air, let me make it clear, I have always wanted to write books. I've written forever. I love writing and I love storytelling. So that was the main sort of reason why I did it. Plus, I felt that I had an interesting, entertaining, and informative story to tell of Paris. I really did, and I think it came out that way. So I say that so no one mistakes what I'm about to say now. But another reason when I was writing that book is I was broke still.
Yeah.
Like probably below minimum wage at that point. And I knew...
Had a bunch of $1 patrons. Yeah.
There's still some people who are signed up at $1.
Really?
You can't do it anymore, sign up, but people who've been there since the beginning, and thank you to them. But I knew this weird thing with the world is people are willing to buy a book for 20 euros, 25 euros, even if they don't know what the book is about.
Yeah.
Forget my book. You go into a bookshop and go, oh, I like the look of that.
Yeah, you might not even open it.
I know.
Like, you never read it.
I know. And it's definitely, it's a very...
books, isn't it?
It's so weird.
Yeah.
But I knew that people would buy a book, especially if I did it. A lot of people who listen to the show, I knew that they'd buy it. I knew it would be a way that I could make a living. So as well as those legitimate reasons I had for writing it, I also knew that I could pay the bills.
Sell a few.
I knew I could sell a few, and I knew I could pay the bills with it. And because podcasting is so new, even though it's been around for 20 years or whatever.
Yeah, it is new still.
Most people are not prepared to pay for a free podcast. Whether it's Patreon, whether it's membership, who cares?
Well, a bunch of people still call it postcard.
Yeah, podcast?
Yes.
I know.
Yeah.
He makes postcards.
Yeah.
I know.
It's very confusing.
And that's fine. And I think that's cool. I until fairly recently, I never became a member of anything that's like YouTube or postcards or whatever. But I knew that people buy books.
Yeah.
And people are comfortable doing it, even if the book's terrible.
They know what they're getting. It's their product.
Exactly.
They know the product.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So making books was a huge game changer for us. And children's books thereafter. It was the first time we teamed up. And it...
but also, if I could just go back to you writing a book, like you becoming an author, I guess.
You have to do the... She put both her hands in theirs and did the... What are they called? Quote marks.
No one can see that. No one can see that.
You even did this thing with your hair, like left, right, author.
No.
I wish we filmed these episodes.
No. Okay. So, what was I going to say?
Yeah. You said even though you're an author...
No, you becoming an author, and kind of opened up other doors.
Yep.
And made some people take you more serious in a way.
Enormously.
So that's also a big game changer, because what we keep coming back to, like podcasting being so new, like people don't really know what it is, and it's like it doesn't have that status.
It helped enormously, and a perfect example is when I had finished the book, the Alliance Française across America. Not Australia, mind you. There was one.
Yeah.
I think it was Rockhampton or Rockingham or something. All in America, and one in England, Manchester.
Yeah.
I did like 50 shows online on Zoom in 50 different states, seriously, where they were like, he's written a book. Let's interview him about Paris and his book. And it was wonderful to do it, and a lot of listeners are here because of it. But I still can't believe that a book is so much more of a door opener than doing 4 or 5 years of podcasting. And it's the same thing. I've thought about it before, and I know because I used to be a journalist. It's like it makes way more sense for a newspaper or a TV show to interview a stand-up comedian than a podcaster. Even if the podcaster is by every metric, more successful, by every single metric.
Yeah.
Because a stand-up comedian, for example, is
It's hard to
standing up
explain.
and you can see him and you can see 100 people
it's
there
not
watching.
hard to explain. Yeah, exactly.
Same with an author. He's written
It's
a book
like
and I'm
tangible.
holding it. Tangible is the word. So, yeah, there you go.
So you became tangible.
I became tangible, and I'm glad that I did, because then when we made the children's books, it opened even more new doors to us. Plus, finally, the pandemic had lessened.
Yeah.
Definitely isn't over, but we could do events.
Yeah.
People would meet us, people would find the book, and then they'd come listen to the podcast, whatever, and all these different doors open through it. Okay, on to the next. There's 3 left I've got. This one is for all you guys out there who make podcasts, especially, and it's something I think many podcasts do wrong, and they do bad headlines of their podcasts. And
Example.
I do an example from my own ones,
Yeah.
because in the early days I did bad ones. I didn't think about a lot of podcasters. They get a guest, for example, who's not very popular. Let's say an author who not many people know their work, and they'll put as the headline for their episode John Smith on his books, or just John Smith talking his books. And I've done that before as well. But the problem with that is the majority of people will skim through and go, don't know who John Smith is, forget it. Right? And it's
Even
not just,
if it's a great conversation or...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even the biggest podcasts in the world just put names of people. And personally, if I don't know them, I'm less likely to click on it. But using what I'd learned through being a journalist, I guess, I looked at my early titles, some of which were really bad. I said I wouldn't mention the wall. Don't mention the wall! The headline for it was just Paris Wall. If you look on Spotify.
Yeah, that's awful.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
And Finding Mary, which I do like, because it was a really fun episode. Finding Mary, it doesn't mean anything, so people won't click on it, Whereas nowadays I put a lot more, not a lot more time, but I think exactly
Paris via food or
Have
something.
you? Did you know there's a half-swallowed wall running around Paris?
Well, it's interesting that
I'd
you
click
didn't
on that.
think more about it in the beginning.
Yeah, I know.
Having come from that journalistic
Well, I did.
background.
I actually did. I did because I have a blog, which is another tip I'd give. I feel like I could do an episode for podcasters, but I wouldn't do it here. Having the blog, the website, has been an amazing way of growing everything, because then podcasts are really hard to share, but if you do a good blog post with a good headline, it can go all over the internet, as I found with some of the more sort of listy kind of episodes.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I did the headlines, but I put them on the blog, and now I try and do them much better for the podcast. 2 left. This is an interesting one. Not so much of a decision, but something I put a lot of time into is knowing the audiences. Knowing the audiences.
Audiences.
Yeah,
Plural.
there's a podcast audience, the people who are listening right now, driving through Tennessee.
The desert.
No, driving.
Hang on. There's no desert.
Yeah, I don't know. Driving stuck in traffic in California.
There you go.
Statistically, that's where the listeners maybe are. But knowing the audiences, like there are 2 million downloads on this podcast. And finally, that same woman who messaged us the other day from somewhere in central France, she messaged that, I just decided to follow on Instagram. And I was like, how have you been missing on Instagram? Because it's like the other hand. They hold each other, and that makes it the full picture. Like pictures of the hotel that I was in for last episode are on Instagram, so you want to see
the full experience, the 3D, the 4D.
Yeah, same with YouTube. Sometimes on YouTube I'll do a YouTube video, the same thing, or Facebook, or the newsletter. Like it goes a bit deeper. And in my head, I always think in the beginning
that everyone's everywhere.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I got a notification from Facebook the other day. So there's about 17,000 Facebook followers, 17,000 Instagram followers. And I was like, they're the exact same people.
Yeah.
And it messaged me and it said, I think it's 85% aren't following on both.
85?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? Yeah. So you got to know your audiences. And that's also a lot of the Instagram followers have never listened to this show at all. Like
they don't even
maybe
know
half of them
exists.
haven't listened. Yeah. They're not podcast people.
Yeah.
And like that was really brought to my eyes in an interesting way. You were there. We went and met a lady who's definitely not listening. And she wanted to buy the book, and she was so excited to buy the book. Do you remember? It was near the Notre Dame. And she messaged, she's like, I want to buy it, I want to buy cash, I'd love to meet you, I've got a gift for you. And I was like, I'm going past there now, let's do it. So I went and met her, and I always ask listeners, do you remember how you discovered the podcast? Because I'm always curious, like, what brought you here? And she said, oh, you're going to kill me. And I said, no, I'm not. She said, I've never listened to an episode. I was like, what? She's like, I'm a huge fan, though. I was like, what are you a fan of?
Yeah.
And she goes, I'm a fan of you on social media. She goes, I love following you and Lina on Instagram.
So the
she's
stories,
like,
the pictures.
I'm a huge fan. I want to read your book. I was like, what?
Yeah.
That was a bit of a game changer for me.
Eye-opener.
So knowing that, which doesn't totally fit with this podcast episode because it's semi-irrelevant because everyone who's listening is a podcast listener.
Yeah.
But like knowing that there are people out there who buy the books, people who bought Paris on Air and then messaged me, I'm going to start listening. Knowing that there are children's book people who don't give a hoot about Instagram or who don't care at all what you and I are doing.
So what's the lesson?
The lesson is to know them all and know that they're different and to treat them differently. As in, Instagram likes nice pictures. And, that doesn't mean that every single person who follows the Earful Tower likes nice pictures or likes nice... The other thing is, like, if you do... I was going to go into dangerous territory with the old medieval wall again.
No,
but
enough.
No, a good example is the most recent episode about interviewing the chef at Le Maurice.
Yeah.
I brought a photographer along and she took such lovely pictures. And that made for a very good blog post. Because I know that there are people who don't care about podcasts who are never going to listen to that interview.
But they're very eager to see.
Yeah, and the headline was something like, "Look, here's a look inside the kitchen of a legendary whatever." And so that, I hope, was enough to keep those people interested and maybe have fans, I'm doing the quote marks, over on Facebook or Instagram or the blog or whatever, and grow them at the same time. And that's how you can make it into a company because I added it up after all that and figured there's about 50,000 people following the Earful Tower. Different people, I think. Insane. Okay, the last point.
Yes.
Setting goals for myself. The decision to start setting goals. Like we already sort of touched on the minimum wage. And all these kind of decisions have been a little bit goal-based.
Yeah.
But I don't usually make them public. Like we do the bucket list goals public, but
I still haven't managed to make any croissants. I managed to buy some, but
you haven't got long left to get through your list. You can just copy paste it for next year.
I have a new one though for next year.
What is it?
Tennis. In the Luxembourg Garden.
That's a really good one.
I know.
That's a good one.
I'm very excited about that.
But to finish up, we'll save that for January.
Okay.
Setting goals, and we've got one that we're not going to share just yet, but we've got a really cool project that I hope will happen. And I've set it as a goal for myself, and the idea is that it keeps me going, keeps me wanting to succeed, is having sort of big carrots ahead to munch at, to reach towards. And I think it's like your mum. Your mum always asks, she goes, how do you come up with new episodes? But I think
it is a never-ending intriguement.
Yeah, it's a big intriguement.
Whatever. For her, she just
It's not an intriguement. I think it's like she's baffled by it.
Yeah.
She's like, how?
She like genuinely can't.
She doesn't.
Fathom.
She doesn't listen or anything.
No, but like
But how have you done 300 episodes?
Yeah, like where? How? What are you gonna do next?
Yeah. And it's firstly I always say to people when they ask those kind of questions, I was like, if you can't come up with 300 ideas from a city like Paris, then you're never going to find inspiration anywhere.
Profession.
Yeah, but you're never going to find inspiration. But secondly, like when you want it to succeed, like I do with this, and you take it very seriously, I don't think you're going to struggle to find stories here.
But I'm very excited about the setting goals.
Because the next one?
Well, no, because like, what's next, you know? Maybe things are not changing, but maybe adding.
I've got the goal I'm talking about might not even be the goal that you're thinking about.
Maybe.
You thinking about the one that will involve a crowd?
No.
Oh wow! See, there you go. So there are several big projects in the works, and I'm very confident that they'll happen. They might take time. I hate being teasy like that, but it's also
but it's important to look to the future. Maybe not like. Sometimes I have a little bit of not a problem, but I find it a little bit annoying sometimes with people who overshare all of their goals all the time, and then nothing comes to fruition.
Oh yeah, fake goalies I call them.
Yeah, it's just a lot of talk. It's just like a lot of hot air.
A popular one for that is I'm writing a book.
I know.
People love that. You know when I did Paris on Air, I never said it on the podcast.
It's better to say I wrote a book.
Yeah, I never mentioned it. One day I found it. I wrote. Hi everyone, I've written a book.
Exactly. But
it's done.
Maybe this is just our opinion.
No, that's what this whole episode's about. The whole episode is about how
the Earful Tower came to be.
Exactly. And how we did it. And it was a glimpse, and I think we can wind things up now. It was intended as a glimpse into sort of the process,
like behind the scenes,
how it works, how we operate, how we think. And if you've listened this far, it lets me know that you're like, I still hate the word fan, but it lets me know that you're invested in this too, and I'm very appreciative for it.
A friend.
I'm very aware. I know that there'll be people still listening, which is super touching. It's very touching to me, and it's
wonderful.
Every day, I'm grateful. I'm surprised that you guys are out there. So thanks for being out there. This was my little glimpse behind the curtain after 5 years. I figure if we don't do something like this,
a little celebration episode, but maybe next week's episode will also be more of a glittery celebration. Yeah, it'll be a bit more
for the public, the next week's one. But this one was for you guys who have made this happen. You know who you are. Thanks for all your help. Thanks for being there. Thanks for helping me get to 5 years. I won't be doing another episode like this until 10 years, I think. So...
Wow.
Yeah. Or 5 million, maybe.
Can you even imagine?
I can't. You know the other thing that I'm going to end on? Because 2 million is such an arbitrary thing. Like, what does it mean, 2 million downloads?
Who knows?
Because there's been almost
sounds good to me.
Yeah, it sounds impressive. It's a good way for me to get guests. But 2 million downloads over about 300 episodes means only about 6,000 or 7,000 downloads per episode, which might not sound like very much if you just do the clean maths on it like that. But you have to remember that in those very, very early episodes, almost no one was listening. So every episode doesn't have the same amount. The new ones have way more than the earlier ones.
So it just like it levels it out. Yeah, okay.
The easy math levels it out, but if you were to look at the graph of how the listens have come, it's growing quickly.
Steep curve.
Yeah, so let's end on this. If you are the person who likes this show and has listened this far, and I've asked you this before, but spread the word. It's the best you can do. Tell your friends to listen. Don't tell them to listen to this episode. Pick another of the good ones. And if you're one of those people, I know I said I wouldn't mention it, but I'll do it. I'll end on this.
The wall?
No. If you're one of the people out there who find it a bit weird to become a member for a podcast that's free, have a think about it, because it makes a big difference to where this show is going in the direction of it. And it will keep getting better. I can guarantee you that. Not only that, there is a world of bonuses that you'll unlock that I am continually adding to. So check it out, patreon.com/the Earful Tower. And if you do sign up, send me an email. It opens up a little inbox chat with me. I love hearing from people when they sign up and what made them sign up, where they found it, all that kind of stuff. Mention Lina's name in it. I'll read it out to her as well. Any last words, Lina? That is not a threat.
Oh, wow. Now you put me on the spot.
Any last words from you, the artist?
Stop it with the fingers. Okay, I opened up a Pandora's box of finger gestures here, I feel. Okay, having said that, I don't know. I'm just really excited to be a part of this world, and let's keep it going.
Doesn't it feel weird to say world?
Yeah, it does.
Though it is
it does, but it is a little world. It's our world.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's a world, isn't it?
And on that note, thank you for sharing our world with us, everybody.
Yes.
We couldn't spin without you. We'll leave it on that note. Merci beaucoup.
Merci.
Au revoir. And here's to the next 5 years and 2 million downloads.
See you next time.
Au revoir.
Bye.